place that I know I can go and just shoot away is a school, an elementary school. Oh, that made you so much of a man, didn't you? You sad little fast food, lisp-having, eyeliner-wearing loser.
Hey guys, and welcome back for another video. Today's video is going to be a little bit sad because I'm sure you've actually already heard about it, but in Texas there was this massive shooting in which 20 people were actually killed. I believe they said 18 children and 2 adults. And so Ben Shapiro from the Daily Wire, see what he has to say.
Well, everybody in the country, all of our hearts just broke at the news yesterday out of Uvalde, Texas. Just horrifying act of unbelievable, unspeakable evil. According to the Associated Press, an 18-year-old gunman killed 19 children as he went from classroom to classroom at a Texas elementary school in a rampage that also left 2 adults dead, according to officials, adding to a gruesome years-long series of mass killings at churches, schools, and stores. The attacker was killed by a Border Patrol agent who rushed into the school without waiting for backup, according to a law enforcement official. So thanks to the heroism of that Border Patrol agent for preventing further loss of life. That is the worst school shooting in America, at least since the Sandy Hook shooting. Hours after the attack, families were still awaiting word on their children. At the town civic center where some gathered, the silence was broken repeatedly by screams and wailing. It's just horrifying. Governor Greg Abbott of Texas said one of the 2 adults killed was a teacher. It's horrifying stuff all the way through. Every time you see a situation like this, it's just horrifying, and you pray to God that it doesn't repeat itself. And then obviously it does repeat itself because there are evil human beings out there, whether they are mentally ill, whether they're not mentally ill, whether they're motivated by some sort of hateful ideology, or whether they're motivated just by a sickness inside them, a darkness inside them. The bottom line is that these hits keep on coming, and they're just, I don't know how you can wake up this morning and not just feel empty inside looking at all of this, obviously. According to the UK Daily Mail, who named the shooter, this is one thing that we here at the Daily Wire do not do. We do not name mass shooters because one of the reasons that studies tend to suggest that you have had a higher incidence of mass shooting in the past several years is because of social media and the fact that there are a lot of twisted people out there who see the fame that attends to mass shooters like this, and then they wish to obtain the same fame by committing similar acts. We at Daily Wire took upon ourselves, I believe it was after Sandy Hook, that we would not engage in this sort of naming of the people who engage in the mass shootings because, again, the media tends to contribute to social contagion. The media tend to grant extraordinary coverage to the shooters, pictures plastered everywhere. And when that happens, then other sick people, other sick minds, perverse human beings, they see this sort of stuff, and then they use this as impetus for their own attacks. We don't do this, and frankly, that's why on the show I don't mention the names of mass shooters. What we will tell you is what we know about the mass shooter. This person was a fast food worker described as a lonely child bullied for his lisp and wearing eyeliner, carried out the massacre at Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas, around 11:30 a.m. on Tuesday after shooting his own grandmother at a house elsewhere in the city.
Okay, so here's what I'm just failing to understand about these kind of shootings. I can only speculate as to why these young men keep going to elementary schools and killing. It's like if you were the kind of kid that was bullied because you had a lisp or because you were wearing eyeliner or whatever, if you were bullied by people probably your own age, why do you feel the need to take out your frustration and your anger out on small children? Is it because you're a coward? Or is it because you really want to affect the world in a bad way? I don't know what it is, but you guys, it is sick. And it makes me, as a parent of a young child, very nervous as to, sending her to school. These kids nowadays, it's really scary.
Reportedly, after an argument about failing to graduate, so this looks a lot like the Sandy Hook shooting, during which the shooter murdered his mother and then proceeded to go to the school and murder a bunch of school children. Police and officials said that the shooter, who had purchased a pair of rifles for his 18th birthday and showed them off on social media, fled the scene of his first shooting in a car armed with a handgun, possibly a rifle, and wearing body armor. He ditched the vehicle close to the school, went inside and started shooting children, teachers, whoever was in his way. So as far as we are aware, he purchased the rifles legally. This does not mean, as we'll discuss in just a moment, that he did not break a wide variety of gun laws in doing what he did or carrying, for example, a handgun, which he is not allowed to do. He's carrying a handgun as well. 2 boys and 4 girls were among those he killed. Also fatally shot were 2 teachers One of them was Eva Morales, 44. Another was Irma Garcia, a mother of 4. Cops rushed to the scene to reports of an armed man who had crashed a car near the school. Also on the scene were Border Patrol agents from a nearby outpost, one of whom got into a firefight with the shooter and shot him dead. An agent was wounded in the shootout but was able to walk himself out of the school, according to a local spokesperson. A number of others were also hurt in the attack. The exact figure remains unclear as of Tuesday. So we pray that those who have been wounded at this point recover as far as they are able, obviously. Just another one of these horrific stories. The local police chief, he said that the suspect acted alone. Here's what he had to say yesterday.
The suspect is deceased at this point. DPS is assisting with the investigation. And at this point, the investigation is leading to tell us that the suspect did act alone during this heinous crime.
It's horrifying all the way through. Well, naturally, the media immediately jumped to gun control. So here's the way that the political conversation usually works in the United States. We don't wait for the facts to come out. There are basically 2 narratives into which we try to toss mass shootings. Narrative number 1 is that it's ideological in nature. Narrative number 2 is that we need more gun control. And if a mass shooting does not fit one of those 2 motives, if a mass shooting does not fit one of those 2 models, then we just discard it from the pile as though it doesn't matter. In the past several weeks, we've had a variety of mass shootings in the United States with a wide variety of suspects. The suspects have varied based on race. In this particular case, the suspect happened to be Hispanic. In the case of the Buffalo, New York shooting, it was a white supremacist white kid. In the case of a recent shooting in California at a Taiwanese church, the suspect was a somewhat elderly Chinese man. In the case of the New York subway shooting that happened in April, that was a somewhat elderly black man. So you had a black man, an Asian man, a Hispanic man, and a white man. And so one thing that you can see from all of them, mass shootings, I believe universally, if not universally, almost universally, are male in nature because violent crime is male in nature. But there is obviously no common thread between these sort of ideological motives of the people who are involved in this. One thing that you usually see is some form of mental illness in the mass shootings, some red flags that went up as far as the behavior of the suspect. This is why one suggestion that has been put out there is better ERPOs. ERPOs are extreme risk protection orders, so red flag laws. That has been one suggestion that's been put out there. The problem is that in cases like we saw in Buffalo, they just didn't work. I mean, the law was on the books, but whether the law is enforced is another question. And in order for an extreme risk protection order to actually go through a court and for the ability to buy guns to be taken off the table, at least buy guns legally to be taken off the table, requires a parent or someone in the community to actually report it to a court. That didn't happen, for example, in Buffalo. So you can have a lot of laws on the books. And if those laws on the books don't actually do the job, it doesn't really matter very much. And this is, by the way, precisely what happened with regard to this particular shooting. So again, Joe Biden had the opportunity to at least let the United States mourn together, because again, I'm unaware of anyone who's not in a state of mourning unless they are just a completely evil human being in the United States over the news from Texas. So the president started off on the right track. He started talking about prayer, which of course, I know that there are a lot of people out there who think that thoughts and prayers is a substitute for action. Well, it isn't a substitute for action. It is a vital component of recognizing our common shared humanity and the nature of evil, because human lives, innocent lives were snuffed out in childhood. It seems like prayer is the appropriate historical response to that. Thoughts and prayers is not, people who treat thoughts and prayers as though that is just an excuse to not talk about things. Number one, it shouldn't be. But number two, those are people who just don't take prayers particularly seriously. Here is the president of the United States actually starting off on the right foot here, and then he immediately goes to the wrong foot, unfortunately.
The Lord is near to the brokenhearted. So tonight, I ask the nation to pray for them. Give the parents and siblings the strength in the darkness they feel right now.
So, I mean, again, all of that is appropriate. What is inappropriate is where Joe Biden went.
You know what? I actually agree with the president on that one. We should absolutely take a moment of silence to pray and wish the very best for those people that have survived and hope that they recover in every way, and that God just protect the families from any further hurt, bring peace to those areas. Let him protect other schools away from these kind of things happening. Doesn't make sense. I mean, if somebody needs help, if somebody's being bullied, if somebody's being mistreated, they have got to be able to talk to somebody about it and somebody listen. There's got to be somebody around you you can trust, somebody you can talk to, so that you don't need to feel like something evil has to happen. Like, where does it stem from? Is evil inherently in all of us and some of us just tap into it more? Is it because things happened to this individual? Was he abused and then took some of his anger out on the world? Who knows what the kid must have been going through? But to be honest with you, I would have had sympathy had he not did what he did. Now I'm just like, it doesn't even matter. I wish he could have survived so that he could have went to prison and had a lot more bad things happen to him. But unfortunately, he had to be put down like the animal he was. He had to be put down because he was out here destroying lives. I don't know if gun laws need to be stricter or if we need to start handing out more guns to schools, because to be honest with you, if guns were already in schools, then maybe this kind of thing wouldn't happen. Maybe people wouldn't feel like, okay, the one place that I know I can go and just shoot away is a school, an elementary school. Oh, that made you so much of a man, didn't you? You sad little fast food, lisp having, eyeliner wearing loser. I'm sorry, but I'm gonna call it what it is. If I know that much about you, I'm gonna say it, because at the end of the day, you killed some people's kids because you just didn't want to do some push-ups, do some sit-ups, go run a mile, eat some fruit, eat some vegetables, stop being a weirdo, be more likable, be more attractive, take a speech class so that you can correct the way that you speak. But you want to just sit and be pathetic and then fester in negativity to the point where you need to get it out somehow in a horrible, disgusting way. Stop being a freaking social outcast weirdo. Why don't you just go out and be a likable person? I'm sorry, I just went off, but you know what? I'm gonna let Ben Shapiro finish. I just had to let that out.
And what next? And this really is vicious. This is vicious stuff from the President of the United States. And it relies, again, on the lie that he is telling about you and your fellow Americans, which is that the people who live next to you, if they disagree with him on gun control, it's because they're being paid off by a corrupt gun lobby that just wants to sell rifles, or there are people who just don't care about dead kids. And that's about as bad as it gets for a president of the United States. I mean, this supposed unifier is tearing the country apart. He's doing so deliberately. He is doing so for political purposes. And I can't think of something much worse politically to do than that in the wake of almost 24 dead children. I really horrifying stuff here from the President of the United States.
As a nation, we have to ask, when in God's name are we going to stand up to the gun lobby? When in God's name we do what we all know in our gut needs to be done?
Well, see, this implication, this last implication here, when will we do what we know needs to be done? What needs to be done that we all know that we need to do, but we won't do it? And why? Right, the implication is we have the solution. It's right here. The solution is X. And you don't want to do X for some reason, either because you're being paid off by the gun lobby or because you don't care about dead kids. It's unworthy of a president of the United States. I lack the words to describe how morally vacuous and disgusting that is. Truly. There are a lot of things in the United States we disagree about. But the notion that there is a one-size-fits-all solution to school shootings, and we all know what we have to do with no cost. It's just there are some of us who are corrupt and evil. To say that about at least half, by the way, by polling data, at least half of your fellow Americans is beyond the pale. It's beyond the pale even for a president as ridiculous as this one is. And then Joe Biden trotted out his favorite line. He started talking about Kevlar and deer. I don't know what makes him think that this sort of nonsense is appropriate at a time when the country is in mourning. I don't know why he thinks it's time to drop a bizarre joke about the use of rifles in the United States while the bodies are still warm. I don't know. This is a line, by the way, that he has used many times before. So here he was using it yesterday.
The idea that an 18-year-old kid can walk into a gun store and buy 2 assault weapons is just wrong. What in God's name do you need an assault weapon for except to kill someone? Deer aren't running through the forest with Kevlar vests on, for God's sake. It's just sick.
Okay, so the president of the United States, he makes that Kevlar deer odd.
Now, if he's been saying that, come on, look at him. He's like 900 years old. Like, you can't get on old people for saying the same joke over and over again.
Thing that he says all the time. Okay, and here's the thing. He's dropped that line like 3-4 times in the past. Here's a little montage of him saying this thing in the past.
Forest with Kevlar vests on. The deer you're hunting wear Kevlar vests. Deer are wearing Kevlar vests? Do you think the deer are wearing Kevlar vests?
Okay, again, dropping these kind of rote political talking points into the middle of a speech about children who are just murdered in a mass shooting is wildly inappropriate. It also happens to be an unbelievably stupid point that makes no sense whatsoever. But the nature of this entire narrative, again, is if you oppose Joe Biden in any way, shape, or form, then it's because you don't have the courage to stand up for children. It's because you know what has to be done here. Now, here's the thing. None of the policies, none of them that are being suggested by the Democrats, short of full-scale gun confiscation, which is the thing that they will not say. And they will not say it because, number one, they don't have the political courage to say so, because it turns out that the American people are not in favor of that sort of thing. And two, it's not practical. It's not practical in a country of some 340 million people in which there are hundreds of millions of firearms to talk about full-scale gun confiscation. Even Democrats, as delusional as they may be on this particular issue, know that.
What can be said about this? Maybe there needs to be programs in high schools, maybe even in middle school. Some kind of program that kids can be involved in that will help them integrate better with people, help them make more friends, help them be more likable and eloquent, or ladylike, or more manly if they need to be. Like I said, he would have been fine had he just probably done some push-ups, some sit-ups, made some friends, got himself a little girlfriend. You wouldn't feel the need to kill grandma and then kill some innocent kids at a school if you actually had your life going somewhere. If you had something to lose, you wouldn't do crazy stuff like that. But it's like, why be remembered for something horrible and disgusting? You guys, I don't have the solution to this. I feel like there needs to be some interventions in schools, starting with kids in middle school, teaching them about school shootings. We need to talk about it with them and let them know that there are avenues for your anger and your pain. Somebody needs to let them know that you're cared about. And I think that changing gun laws is not going to make a difference because, believe it or not, President Biden, you can get a gun without actually going to a gun store. In fact, you can probably get a lot more on the street than you can at the store. I'm just saying. Because guns don't kill people. People kill people. The guns are just inanimate objects that just sit there and lay. Unless a person picks them up, they are useless. So make sure you leave me a comment, guys, and tell me what you think. I know this is a long one, and there's a lot of emotional uproars in this video, but you know what? Sometimes this kind of stuff needs to be said. Make sure you tell me what you think, and I'll see you next time.